today? Well, Parkinson's disease is the second most prevalent neurodegenerative disease in Australia after Alzheimer's. In spite of this, many people within the community and even health professionals are unaware of the full impact of the Parkinson's disease on patients, their families, caregivers, the health services and the nation. Parkinson's disease has been called the designer disease because each case is unique and each story is personal. Judy Recher, a distinguished Toastmaster, is accredited by Parkinson's New South Wales to help raise public awareness of the disease. Diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2005, she presents her own personal viewpoint of some of the challenges that she and others with Parkinson's face on a daily basis. As carer for her husband, Ian, Denise Forrest, formerly a trained nurse and community health coordinator, will give you a different view into the world of those living with Parkinson's. Hopefully their stories will inspire you to join the battle against this insidious disease. So please join me in welcoming Judy to tell us about life in the slow lane.
Thank you, Cynthia. I sat in that crowded shopping center and I watched him as he walked slowly past me, a small bag of groceries in his hand. And then he stopped and he stood there looking down at his feet. And I knew that he was waiting for his brain to give the message to his feet so he could move again. I know this because it happens to me. He and I are among the 80,000 Australians who have Parkinson's disease. As Cynthia said, Parkinson's disease is the second most prevalent neurodegenerative disease in Australia after Alzheimer's. Today, Denise Forrest and I, on behalf of Parkinson's New South Wales, are going to give you two viewpoints of life with Parkinson's, living with Parkinson's on a day-to-day basis. What is Parkinson's disease? It's a progressive, debilitating, incurable disease of the central nervous system. Our brains contain cells that produce a chemical called dopamine, and dopamine is essential for smooth muscle movement. When we have enough in our systems, we can move freely. But when we don't, we slow down. And sometimes we even stop. And the thing is that by the time a person has been diagnosed with Parkinson's, 80% of the dopamine-producing cells in the body are dead. Let me give you some basic facts about Parkinson's. There is no known cure. There is no known cause. But among those 80,000 Australians who have Parkinson's disease, 20% of them, 16,000 people, are in the workforce. And among those are about 2,000 people who are under the age of 40. Can you imagine the challenges that they face trying to establish their homes, raise their families, develop their careers? It is just such a thing for them to have. The cost to the nation of Parkinson's disease is about, are you ready? $8 billion a year. $8 billion. And yet, Parkinson's disease is not counted on the government's chronic disease register. It costs more than any of those other diseases, but it is not listed. Before I go on, I have a confession to make to you. I'm an addict. I am addicted to performance-enhancing drugs, and I would like you to give me whatever I can have. They don't know what they're talking about, those boys. What are the key symptoms of Parkinson's? Well, they're physical symptoms, such as tremors. That's the one that most people tend to associate with Parkinson's disease. There's rigidity and stiffness in the body, so that when you move around, you don't move gracefully. In some ways, it's unfortunate that my medication kicked in about 15 minutes before we started, because the contrast is there. There is also slowness in movement. And sometimes there's no movement at all, as when I freeze. And quite a few of us experience that. You can have mental problems with Parkinson's as well. You find, or I have found myself, an inability or a lack of ability to concentrate on preparing papers, lectures, doing my accounts. It's difficult to focus. You can't concentrate. And in addition to that, there's the emotional pressure of feeling inadequate, of being depressed, the family or carers being concerned about financial stress. There are all sorts of aspects of the way that Parkinson's can affect you and the impact that they can have on your life. So what about my life in the slow lane, as defined by Parkinson's? It is very difficult to diagnose Parkinson's, but because my mother had it, I recognized certain signs in 2005 that made me think I might possibly have it. My right foot seemed to slap when I walked, and my right arm didn't swing. I had trouble brushing my teeth, and my handwriting became smaller and smaller until it was totally illegible. When I said to you that I am addicted to high-end performance drugs, that's not what it is anyway. Part of the thing with Parkinson's is your brain doesn't work all the time. But anyway, when I said that to you, what I didn't say is that the change from on and off can be instantaneous. Those of us with Parkinson's are controlled by our medication regime. We have no choice. When we are off, as I said, there's an instantaneous loss of energy, ability to think, and when we're on, we feel like we can fly. When I went to my neurologist to check on whether or not I possibly had Parkinson's, when he gave me the dose of Cinnamon and every single one of my symptoms disappeared, that was confirmation that I had the disease. In most cases, progression is slow. And the management of Parkinson's involves treating the symptoms as they arise. Research for Parkinson's has shown that exercise, moderate to vigorous exercise, can slow the progression of the disease by 40%. Well, I have been so lucky because before I got Parkinson's, my life on Dangar Island had made me strong. And after Parkinson's, my attendance at an exercise class 3 times a week has made me even stronger. The 7th assessment that I had of my strength and other abilities such as balance and all those other things like that, flexibility, the 7th assessment showed that I was stronger than I was when I started 4 years earlier. So if you can, exercise is very good. And I just want to show you this 72-year-old bicep. I intend to stay as strong as I can. That's what I want to do. Now, in the 8 years since I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, my symptoms have really had a minimal impact on my daily life. But it's hard to imagine the difficulties that others have when the simplest task is almost impossible. I can't tell you how long it took me to button up this shirt this morning, but that's one of the things. It's hard to imagine the difficulties these people have. And I just want to give you a little idea of what they might encounter. For example, my friend Sarah has told me when she tries to use a mobile phone, it's very difficult because she can't get to it to talk to it, to answer it, to dial a number. She said it's almost impossible to use because of her tremors. But she said there is one advantage to her tremors that no one else has. She is able to soothe her new baby granddaughter better than anybody else because she holds that baby close to her heart and she shakes it and rocks it. And she calls herself Grandma Shaky. But imagine the pain of not being able to hold your baby for fear of dropping it. My friends Ian and Denise were talking recently, and Ian was swaying back and forth, and back and forth. And Denise said, "Ian, what are you doing?" And he said, "I'm trying to decide which one of you to talk to." Well, that may seem funny until you realize that Parkinson's has affected the muscles of his eyes so that he sees duplicates. One problem that a lot of us have with Parkinson's is the ability to get out of bed at night, to turn over in bed, especially in the wintertime. But let me tell you, I have solved that problem with my satin nightshirt and my satin sheets. When I turn over in bed at night, I just slip from one side to the other and chase my pillow down the wall. And another aspect of Parkinson's is called dyskinesia. It's involuntary movements. My daughter and my sister tell me I'm never still anymore. If I'm in the bathroom brushing my teeth, I'm doing this sort of thing. If I'm in the kitchen cooking, I'm doing this sort of thing. But at least I don't have to sit on my hands like Michael J. Fox. At least not yet. So. My life with Parkinson's. The main thing that is affecting me now is freezing. And it affects me in several different ways. It affects me physically in the sense that it reduces my independence, both when I go out and at home. And it occurs more when I'm tired or when I'm emotionally involved. For example, when I took my daughter to the airport, or my sister to the airport to return to the United States. It is, I'm committed to the exercise class because it helps prevent that. It means I'm able to do things more. And it can be incredibly frustrating. I go to the train station, go through the ticket booth, put my ticket in, the little gates go boop, open, and there I am, still on that side. They close, and I have to do it again. And it also happens in elevators or at other doors and things where the elevator door will open, and I find it very difficult to step in. And then it opens again, and it's hard to step out because my feet are stuck to the floor. Freezing is when you're walking along and all of a sudden you just can't move forward again. And the harder you try, the more you get stuck. It's really interesting to try to run to the phone when you're in a freezing state. And it can also be embarrassing. A couple of weeks ago, I went shopping, and I was at the greengrocer. And I picked up a bunch of bananas, and I picked up a bag of tomatoes, and I went over to pay for them. And I froze, but I wasn't at the counter yet. Then I discovered that my bag of tomatoes had a hole in it, and one of the tomatoes was falling out. So here I am with a bag of tomatoes here, a bunch of bananas here, my bag hanging over my shoulder here, and my shopping trolley behind me here. And I said to the lady, I'm moving very slowly right now. Can you help me? The bag of tomatoes has a hole in it. And she helped me, and she put the things in the bag. I gave her my money. She gave me the change, which was bills with coins piled on top. And it was frustrating and embarrassing. And the other thing that happens when I freeze, when the dopamine wears out, is as if my eyes are catching it. They become full of tears. So I'm standing at the greengrocer with my bags of things, and my eyes are watering. And I said to her, I'm not crying, I just want a bag of tomatoes. It can be frustrating. The thing about freezing is that it's not treated by medication, but we do have coping mechanisms. And it is so effective, because when we walk normally, we don't think about the muscles we use when we're walking any more than we think about what we're doing when we're driving a car. And the muscles, the autonomic system that keeps us moving, is in the back of the brain. But if you stop and consciously think about what you're doing from the front of the brain, guess what? You can go. It doesn't matter how frozen I am, what I'm doing. As soon as I say to myself, either out loud or quietly, big steps, big steps, big steps, I can move again. And I went to a convention in Sydney at the Entertainment Center. And by the second day, I was so tired. It was incredible effort just to move. And the big steps got me all the way through that convention center and to a cab so I could come home. Sometimes they're not as big, and sometimes you need to add to it big and slow, big and slow. But it works. It works. I will never be free of Parkinson's, but I'm not alone. There are 6.1 million people in the world that have Parkinson's disease. And Parkinson's New South Wales is a not-for-profit, community-based organization, like many around the world, that provides support for those living with Parkinson's. And this support is in the form of an info line, which is staffed by professionals who can help you in terms of what's relating to your disease. They have research studies, they have counseling, they have support groups all around the country. And so we are not alone with Parkinson's New South Wales there to support us. Despite the challenges in my life because of Parkinson's, I have learned so much. When I was first diagnosed, I visualized my illness as a little triangular red flag above my path. And it was placed there by my angels and guides, and there was a message with it. It said, Judy, you're not giving yourself enough time to do what's important. So we're going to give it to you. Well, I have learned so much. And I have seen so many opportunities to step through another door and to learn even more. And one thing I have learned is that those of us with Parkinson's live a triple A life. We are aware of our disease and how it affects us, our family members. We are aware of the sources of help for us, social, medical, and otherwise. And we are just aware of what is happening. The second A, adapt. We are able to adapt. We have to adapt. We have to adapt to the changes that happen to ourselves physically. We have to be able to adapt to perhaps changes in lifestyle, but we have to be able to adapt. And the third A is acceptance. When I was telling my daughters one time about just feeling low, my youngest daughter said to me, "Enjoy your moments of inability. Have you ever considered that they could be gifts of time from your angels just to be?" Well, those moments are there. And they're a time for reflection. And they're a time to build strength. And they're a time for you to get ready for the next step. Now, it doesn't matter whether or not I try to tell someone something and my eyes are watering, or even if I'm really crying, it doesn't matter. I have an important message to get across. And that sort of thing should not make a difference, because my heart is in that message. And in my own way, I'm fighting back. I have... This is really good. In my own way, I'm fighting back, and I will never give up. And among the things that I'm doing is I am participating in a research by the Sydney University Institute of Brain and Mind. I am working with another researcher on looking at Parkinson's and living with Parkinson's on a day-to-day basis. I've willed my brain to Parkinson's for research, but only when I'm finished with it. And also, I don't fear my future. I believe in myself, and I believe in what I can do now. Because, like every single one of you, all we have is now. That is all we have. And right now, I will do as much as I can, as hard as I can, as long as I can. Now, what about you? Would you please, those of you really who know what living with Parkinson's is like, raise your hand for me, please? It's really good in terms of seeing what we can do. Let's just review very quickly the cost of Parkinson's. 80,000 people have Parkinson's in Australia. 16,000 of them are in the workforce. 2,000 are under the age of 40. It costs the country $8 billion a year for Parkinson's, and it is not included on the government's chronic disease register. Well, what can you do? You can contact the website of Parkinson's New South Wales and find out how you can help. You can volunteer your labor, your time, financial donations. You can take part in the fundraising events, either organizing them or supporting them. And you can help to lobby the government to change that, to put Parkinson's on the chronic disease list. Each and every one of us has our own role. And I believe strongly that together we can make it. Cynthia.